Mike's there.
Thank you.
Syphilis. Is that the word you're supposed to say? Syphilis?
Sibilance.
Sibilance.
Is that an actual word?
That's it's a Tom Hanks bit on Saturday Night Live.
Ah.
And he would go and he was the roadie and he would go, sibilance, sibilance.
Oh, when he talks into the mic. That's funny. All right, we are synced. We are sunk. Everything's good. Everything's great. How are you guys?
Great.
Fantastic.
I'm excited
Good
to talk about the MCU.
You got it. Welcome to another episode of Film. I'll do it again. Hello and welcome to another episode of Funhaus.
Star Wars.
There's a fly on the webcam.
It's Ray.
There was a fly on the webcam.
Dear God. Just sitting there. This episode is brought to you by Lisa Mattress. You get $160 off by going to lisa.com/Funhaus. We'll be hearing more about them later. But for now, we're talking about the MCU in review. It's been about 4 months since Infinity War came out. We're going to talk about our favorite Marvel movies and reflect on what is possibly the biggest film of all time. But first, let me introduce my guest. To my left, I have James Willems.
Hello.
To my other left, it's Bruce Green.
Hi.
It's the same left.
I know. And then to my other right, it's Lauren Sontag.
Hello.
I'm going to go ahead and name each and one of you since I'm going to give myself a role last. James is, I think, the Black Widow of the group.
Thank you.
Oh, that's
Bruce
cool.
is the Hulk.
Yep.
Lawrence is Vision.
Thank you.
Oh.
And I'm somewhere between...
I'm something for Doctor Strange, but that's cool.
That's fine. I think I'm somewhere between an Ant-Man and a Hawkeye.
What?
Because I was not in Infinity War.
Oh, you're Winter Soldier, dude.
Yeah,
Am I
come
winner?
on.
On the poster.
Oh, you're
yeah.
totally Winter Soldier.
You're Bucky.
I think he's Black Panther.
Ooh,
I
okay,
wish,
all right.
I wish I was Black Panther.
Hey, I'll
That's real
trade you.
brave.
You be the
Well,
Hulk,
good.
I'll be Black Panther.
Anyway, I did a little bit of I did a quick little write-up here. Just I don't know why I was in the mood. Maybe because it's Alana's first day, and I feel I have to like I feel like, oh, we have a writer in the office now.
You have to impress her?
I would be like, look at the hard work I could do. Not really.
Lawrence has been a writer for years.
Whatever, man.
Yeah, but we've been slowly dumbing him down.
I gave it up because I wanted to
working
get
him
paid.
here. Anyways, I wrote this up. It's been 4 months since Infinity War first came out in theaters. Back then, we thought it was just going to be a giant pile of awesome, and it was. Has our opinion changed? Why or why not? So I did a little thought on our flight back from RTX because Infinity War was
You were
on
watching
the plane.
it. I watched you watch
I watched it twice.
And on the plane?
There and then back again. An Infinity War story.
That's not, Avengers. Come on now.
So anyway, I wanted us all to sort of rank our favorite MCU movies. That's the ones that came out in the last 10 years. I actually have a handy little list here. Do you guys want me to quickly recap them?
Oh,
No.
goodness.
Just so they're fresh in your
list
mind.
all of them?
Just
No,
have
that
it up
sounds
so we
terrible.
can look at it.
It just means we're not including Spider-Man's up until Homecoming
Basically, it starts with Iron
and
Man.
Ang Lee's Hulk.
The list I have in front of me, I won't read them all, but it starts with Iron
even
Man in
the other
2008 and then ends with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, which is coming out in 2020.
Goodness.
There,
Maybe.
Wait, when-
Potentially.
oh, okay.
Possibly.
Maybe.
We don't actually know
We
that
don't
yet.
know.
Yeah.
Because Drax may not be back.
Now, didn't they announce a Doctor Strange 2?
Yeah.
Yeah, they did. They did.
Okay.
I think they're writing it now.
That's sort of an issue we can talk a little bit about with Infinity War. But
His head looked way too big right there. Just sorry.
Jeremy
It looked
Renner?
comically big, yeah.
You're one of the first of many to notice.
What's with that head, Jeremy?
So here's a quick little write-up I just did on Infinity War for you guys. So Infinity War for me is a movie that should have never worked. While the build-up made sense, that's like 15-plus movies with little bits of information leading up to this movie. You were asking an audience to have required viewing before a giant undertaking, which was Avengers Infinity War. It really should have never worked. Thankfully, the Marvel Studio team made it, and on their worst day, they made the lead up to it. They made enjoyable films. So all the movies leading up to it, I thought were done pretty well. I feel like we've been burned by movies before that leave clues or hints that never pay off when you're trying to expand a bigger universe. For me, it's so mind-blowing that there's been so much continuity over 10 years, and it actually paid off. I still feel that way. So the movie itself, I felt was paced incredibly well. What took 10 years to build up is accomplished in a matter of days in the time span of the movie. It's just crazy that Thanos goes from having one stone to wiping out half the galaxy in 2.5 hours runtime for a film. And it never felt rushed for me. So for me, the movie, the pacing was on point. Most of the CGI was definitely on point. The pros were Thanos, thought he looked amazing. On the con side, anytime we saw Bruce Banner inside the Hulkbuster, it still looks terrible, even on a plane. The movie was funny when it needed to be, and it never felt forced, unlike something like Deadpool. I've always looked at Marvel movies as just sort of popcorn evenings or like an extended TV episode or something, but Avengers Infinity War, to me, felt like it actually was elevated, and to me, it was a fantastic film. So having some time to have a retrospective, that is how I feel about Avengers Infinity War. So that's it. I just wanted to get that off my chest.
Well written, Adam.
That's all. That was something that was brewing in my head now that I've seen the movie 5 times.
Remember us when you get that Pulitzer, will you?
There's so many typos in this thing that I wrote.
You know what? That doesn't disqualify you. Not anymore.
So real quick, I guess we can do just a quick little recap. How do you guys all feel about Avengers Infinity War now that you have some time to see it once or twice, maybe 5 times?
I just watched it again, literally last night. I had it on. It's so fucking good. For me, I think it's so fucking good. I still think Thor Ragnarok stands tall as my favorite of them all. I can't say it's because it's made better. I think it's just more fun. You know, it's easy to pop on and enjoy every single time. And there's literally not a single lull in Thor Ragnarok. Like every single challenge is a fun challenge. Every single interaction is a fun interaction. We were talking about it in the Ant-Man and the Wasp, which is a movie I liked, but I was like, you can notice when they go from action sequence to narrative dialogue sequence, because it's like shifts from a cool sequence to just being in a back of a van.
Yeah.
Whereas in Thor Ragnarok, that dialogue happens while Thor is in an electric chair that shocks him and he's being moved around. Like, they keep it going.
Pushing the plot forward,
Everything feels like a battle, even the dialogue. But to Infinity War, man, it's so fucking good. And I think rewatching it, I think I know why it's so good. We'll have to do this in the future, like when people show kids Star Wars, and then you film the reaction of people finding out that Darth Vader is Luke's father. We'll do it in like 20 years, where you could take a person and you can just show them Infinity War, and I think they'll enjoy it.
Okay.
Really, without doing homework?
It
think
establishes
that's-
character surgically.
That's-
like 1 or 2 lines and you know exactly who everyone is and where they're at.
That's the success of this movie. I was noticing that without being cumbersome, it reintroduces basically every single character and makes the focus Thanos, who is a new character in a lot of ways to the series. Like, it's the first time you get his backstory and everything. So it's not his origin story, but it's a story about him. And then as the pieces slide in, they're all introduced. There's always little moments where they like explain. Even the opening with Thor and Loki, it explains their relationship, even though that was just the movie that just came out. Like, it explains it, moves on to that sequence. It could be anything. Like, it could be any other teaser thing that happens at the beginning of another movie, like an Indiana Jones or something. In Indiana Jones, they don't necessarily explain why he's going and searching for something. By the time he runs away from a stone and gets on the boat and flies away, you're like, I know this character.
You know what he's doing, yeah.
They do that with every single character. The first time you see Captain America, he shows up to save the day, and he's shrouded in like darkness and stuff, and they pretty much just they're like, you've been on the run for like. Everything is set up, and I think that's why it's so good.
Question though for you, James, 'cause I know we've been talking about this for years about how your big issue with the Marvel movies is the villain that is just the shadow or the opposite of the hero, and we still see that with Black Panther and Ant-Man and the Wasp and stuff like that. People have done like extensive teardowns of how Iron Man and Thanos are the opposites. How do you feel about those two being polar opposites? They only have the brief moment of dialogue, but you have Tony who wants to protect, Thanos who wants to protect, but they want to do it in 2 different ways.
To be clear, I have no issue with that as a narrative element. I think that's a great way to tell your narrative and give your hero something to overcome. My problem is that there are a lot of Marvel and just general superhero movies where they make it a literal shadow. Iron Man fights a Iron Man. And Black Panther fights a Black Panther. Or in this case, a gold other cat. Like, it's identical. Even in the Venom trailer, Venom fights an identical thing to Venom. For a character motivational standpoint, you should definitely have Tony Stark fighting someone who mirrors his motivations, but he shouldn't be Tony Stark.
It shouldn't be another Iron Man.
You can find some other character from across the galaxy.
Captain America.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's Civil War's great for the same reason. They're fighting for the same thing. They're just approaching it from 2 different ways, but they're not the same character, you know?
On a larger scale, though, that was something I read that was really interesting, that if Tony Stark continued on this path, would he end up developing a giant army that would go and liberate planets?
He
You know,
kind well, he
that-
kind
that-
of did.
Well, that's what he's doing on a small scale.
That's what Ultron was kind of about.
That's what
yeah.
I mean, though, is like he's doing on a small scale with the planet. Thanos is just technologically further ahead.
Well,
and he assembled an army to go invade planets, and to save them, he destroyed half their population. And then he talks about how
the same thing
Gamora's
probably
home
would have
planet-
happened if Captain America hadn't stopped Tony Stark.
Right.
Is that his robots would have been turned to evil, and that the weapon he used to protect people would be used against them, which is also what happened with Thanos. But Thanos was fully aware the whole time that that's what he wanted to do.
The interesting thing watching it again is there's a line in. By the way, this is a spoiler, right?
This is a huge
Talk
spoiler.
about whatever we want, since everyone in the world saw this movie anyway.
Yeah.
There's a point where he's about to throw Gamora off and get the Soul Stone,
on Vormir.
where he's like, I'm not going to hesitate again.
Yeah.
like-
so when did he hesitate?
Like,
So
before?
he did
there's some
before,
sort of
yeah.
there's some sort of story in Thanos' history where he didn't pull the trigger, and it resulted, I'm assuming, partially in Titan being dismantled or destroyed or whatever.
He saw it as a negative.
Yeah, yeah.
Because something he didn't do last time.
He didn't take action.
ruined his home planet or whatever.
Despite how bad it may have seemed, like the small short-term result would be. So this time he is going to throw his beloved daughter off a cliff. And I'm like, these are cool fucking. This is so totally things that you would see Tony Stark wrestling with. It's great. I love it.
And in that way, Captain America, and it was Civil War thematically led up to Infinity War in a really cool way, because Stark was like, we have to make sacrifices to do the right thing. Captain America's like, no, that's not how America works. We protect freedom and we do it the right way, and we'll find a way through our force of will to make the right thing happen in the right way.
Yeah.
And now here we are, Cap versus Thanos, who Thanos says, I'm gonna do the right thing, but I'll sacrifice whatever I need to do it. These are lines that are referenced in Infinity War. We don't sacrifice to win, essentially what Captain
We
America
don't
did.
trade lives.
But then they did, and I don't understand what that's all
The
about.
theme has always been the same, and it's the same in pretty much every like large hero film, which is, do I sacrifice one for a million?
Mm-hmm.
That's always the same thing. You'll notice that across all sorts of different movies and television shows that you watch. And usually, in the Western world, typically no. You shouldn't be sacrificing one for a million. As soon as you sacrifice one, it's a slippery slope, and then it goes all the way down to your Thanos at that point. And I think this movie does that, to all of your points, very, very well. I don't see flaws in these movies, and I think I'm probably the biggest proponent. Maybe Adam and I are pretty equal at this point of MCU.
Yeah.
But I want to talk about the creators of Infinity War and Civil War, the Russo brothers, because we were watching the Russo brothers years ago with Arrested Development, and they could build character on Arrested Development that you cared about, but also it was very funny. And I never thought it would translate. I never thought it would go from they can build character, but then they can make us care about them. I'm an idiot because the more that I think about it, of course that makes sense. Yeah, of course I cared about the characters in Arrested Development, and I thought they were funny. It's the same here. And like you said, where you can watch Infinity War and no other movie and still tap into what's going on, who the characters are, and why they work the way they work. That is almost impossible to do. As creators, we all know how hard that is to do. To make something that is accessible to almost everybody, and make it good.
And make it satisfy corporate agenda.
All of it.
Yeah.
Like hit all these check
Yeah.
marks. And I don't know, like, I would love to sit down and talk to Chris Nolan and the Russo brothers and find out why they do what they do and how they do it, because they're geniuses. They're absolute geniuses.
It's this perfect balance, right? Of like, it's enough for everyone, but then also the people who are hardcore into this stuff. There's the guy in the audience who goes, "That's Red Skull. He was taken away by the Terminator." Like, shut the fuck up, dude. Like, we're watching a movie. But he got some enjoyment out of it. So good for him.
I think about when Terminator Salvation was going into production and Christian Bale signed on, he gave an interview where everyone was like at that point he was like, had some of the biggest momentum of any Hollywood actor. And they're like, so why are you doing the fourth Terminator directed by Mick G? And he was like, because I read the script and I said I'd only do this film if it was the kind of movie that would stand on its own if it was read as a play, right? Like
remember
he
remember that line.
and it would be just as compelling like that. And then
kind of, having
he clearly
seen it-
lied.
Having seen it, I get it. There are some bullshit moments that when I imagine it on the page, I'm like, wow, this is what a heartfelt tale about what it is to be human and to betray your friends and to find humanity when humanity's left the world. I can see that being Shakespearean bullshit on a stage. But
He's also given post interviews and said they changed it. But
I was lied to.
I can imagine a version of that script that was very heady Shakespearean actor stuff. But what resulted did look like a lot of bullshit
But
back and forth.
the flip side, I feel like this is the kind of movie that could be read. Like, if you read the novelization of Infinity War, it would probably be pretty fucking compelling.
Yeah.
Which you can't say about many things, and I think that's why the writer's approach is so important. Because they think of it that way.
No,
They go, what's going to get you to want to turn the page? Because the action's there. They know that's there, but they don't use it as a crutch. That's just in addition to.
Well, I think you hit on a really good point. Thanos, or I think Bruce, or one of you guys were saying that Thanos is sort of that he's the most character you get out of this movie.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
And
The movie's about Thanos.
it really is. And
It's not about the Avengers.
They said that early on, that they're like, this is a Thanos movie, and everyone's like, oh, I don't know. But they wrote him as a really good character, so much so that like there's the whole subreddit dedicated to, like, Thanos did nothing wrong. Like I think that's just the signs of good writing and good acting and good performance. And it blows my mind that he's an entirely CGI character.
Yeah.
And it takes probably 2,500 people to bring him to life.
Yeah.
The amount of animators and engineers and everyone else. And
so was Jar Jar, and we all fell in love with him.
but I mean that's actually a really good example of like, look at Jar Jar versus Josh Brolin with weird headset. Even James Spader played Ultron did a similar thing, but the performance you get out of a cartoon is so fucking good. It baffles me.
It's basically Thanos and Gollum.
Yeah.
Are the two because
Or Caesar.
like I know people are going to mention Caesar.
I haven't even seen those movies.
But I don't think that's the same. I think Andy Serkis is a great actor who is way better in things other than Planet of the Apes.
It's probably better as Gollum than Caesar.
Because he gave the animators a fucking performance.
Yeah.
In this new take on a character. Like, you haven't seen this type of thing before. And I think in that same vein, credit goes to Josh Brolin. He gave those animators who work their asses off to make this thing look amazing and make it feel real, but he did give them at least something.
Well, he gave them subtlety, which you never get in a blobby CG cartoon man.
Yep.
He gave them a performance that had emotional subtlety, and somehow that survived, translating into being a purple man with a golden helmet. And yeah, I mean, to all your guys' points, there are a number of technical marvels, I guess pun intended, that were accomplished with Infinity War, and I do hope that it is respected for that for many, many years to come.
Yeah.
Which is weird because we're talking about half a movie, technically.
Well, I think part of the reason it works, watching it again, because I was marveling at the effects, they must have taken a playbook from Who Framed Roger Rabbit, because you ever see the breakdown of how they did all the effects, where they were like, okay, well, we know we're going to animate in a character, but we have to figure out everything that the character would touch in the scene, so the light moves and stuff.
Yeah.
They did a really great job having, even a scene where Gamora, a actress in makeup, is standing next to Thanos, a fully CG character. Having the two worlds interact with both of them the same way is really, really well done, and I think that's part of the amazing effects that take place in this, that prevent anything from breaking in terms of visuals.
There's a similar shot at the end of Thanos when he's in Wakanda, and you see the tree swaying in the wind, and the shadow is perfect on his face.
Yeah.
And just the moment when they're all holding his head.
Yeah.
His head's his scale is so insane.
Yeah.
When he's holding just a bowl, and then he hands it to Gamora, and it's huge when she's holding it. They're they just did a really good job of making you feel like this giant cartoon is real, and he's interacting with the world, which I thought that was that really would have made or broken the movie.
Oh, definitely. If Thanos' special effects had been bad, or if his acting had been not nearly as on par, or whatever else, I think that absolutely would have broken the illusion right away. And that's another thing, is that I'll sort of pull all the way out and go to the god himself, Kevin Feige, who's been basically putting this universe together for the last 20 years. 2008 was the first Iron Man, but before that, I think he was probably working 3-4 years on this stuff.
It had been a dream of his for a very long time. I think a lot of ours, just we were all obviously younger, but I think that was something as children were unable to articulate, that man, this was sort of what I was hinting at earlier. Like when you watch that movie, I Am Legend, and you see the Batman and Superman logo together, you're like, "Fuck you, just make it." You know, Or if you're watching a Batman film, like, "Well, I'm off to Metropolis. See you later," and it means nothing. That always bothered me in other films. Whereas this one, when there is mention of another character, you actually see two different characters in a similar movie, like Thor Ragnarok, and it boggles my mind why it took so long for someone to figure this out. But
well, I mean, like
it's hard to do.
I think
it's extremely hard to do. Obviously, it's very hard to do.
Even on our small scale of productions, I think you know why it's so hard.
As I've gotten older, I've realized, yes, actors are expensive and they're busy.
Well, I mean,
for one, and then
they're the smallest piece of the puzzle.
Exactly, and then it gets even more complicated from there.
The writing and the producing and the special effects and all that. I mean, like just all the way down to the grips and like just the general set decor and set atmosphere of shooting these movies. Like I think that's why I don't know how he's done it. That's another guy I'd love to talk to is Kevin Feige. I'm just curious to see what his attitude has been the entire time and how he's kept this so uniform. It's amazing. It blows my mind.
I do want to touch on a point though. They said that how do you guys feel about Infinity War essentially being half a movie?
I'm trying to reserve judgment because my biggest problems with Infinity War are technically none. I can't point to a thing that says that says that is flawed. But me personally, in terms of my tastes, I have some issues with the fact that there's not much of, well, this is going to sound stupid as shit, but there's not much of an arc there. There are thematic things that are propped up but not answered and not even really acknowledged properly. But again, half a movie. Civil War, I think, did a really good job of introducing a complicated question and then through the characters providing a lot of commentary and insight and then giving you an ending or a conclusion that may jive or not with your worldview or your opinion, whatever, but at least they answered it.
It had a conclusion.
Yeah. Infinity War, I'm still confused a little bit what the core philosophical question is. Well, and it may be like, is it okay to sacrifice an amount of people to benefit others? Yeah, sure. And to that degree, I guess Infinity War did provide some commentary on it. But aside from Thanos being sad but driven and like being introduced well, there's still not a character whose story I'm bought into, really. Aside from, because if Part 2 is invariably going to have Thanos losing and the population being restored. If not, that would be very daring, I think. But if that happens, then what have we learned? I don't know. So I trust that good writing can do a lot, and they have to have probably the best writing in Part 2 to satisfy me because I have, for my own personal tastes, that's what I would like to get out of Part 2. So I'm still a little middling personally on Infinity War because I don't know how that's going to resolve. And I'm very curious to see where it's going to go.
So obviously, I think the reaction, people immediately reacted to it with like, ooh, like getting kicked in the gut, kind of like an Empire Strikes Back. Like, really? This is how it ends? The reason I was okay with it, one, because I think we're changing the way movies work when you announce the next 20 titles.
Oh, yeah.
And then you're like, here's what's going to come out for the next 15 years. That's a new thing. And so, like, if this had happened in 1993 and no one knew that there was going to be another one, but ever since The Matrix opened the can of worms on all that, they were like, hey, we're just going to announce a sequel so that way you can't yell at us about how this one's going to end.
Yeah.
I think there's a certain new thing. If you've ever seen a series of unfortunate events on Netflix, it does the same thing with television, where every arc is 2 episodes, 2-hour-long episodes long, and then it moves on to a new arc. But it means that the first episode ends with the bad guys winning almost every single time, and then the second episode ends with the heroes resolving the situation and then moving on to a new place to fight a new challenge.
That makes the pacing so odd, because that means the first half is the end of Act 2, and then Act 3 is the entire second half.
Yeah.
So I'm expecting Part 2 will heavily sidetrack into Thanos' backstory or something, just to pace it out properly, which I'm also wondering about, because everyone's going to go into that wanting to pick right up. And they're going to have to sidebar, right?
I mean, I think that's why it was not so jarring that it turned people off, because they made such an effort to make sure it was Thanos' story. So in a lot of ways, he won. He followed somewhat of a very truncated, accelerated hero's journey.
That's really cool.
And in the face of adversity, he managed to be victorious.
Yeah, no, you're
and
right.
the last shot is him like finally settling down into his victory. It's a lot more like a Greek poem than maybe a traditional narrative.
It's a tragedy,
but it is very much the hero has an agenda. He does whatever he needs to get. He's faced with these Wakandans. He goes to galaxies. He travels through this.
Spider-Mans.
Yeah. In the end, he managed to kill his daughter and destroy half the population.
Well, he has to sacrifice his daughter in order to save the universe.
Yeah, you're right.
So-
It's like a Macbeth or a
it's
Hamlet.
Yeah.
And so I think it's not the most popular narrative now. It's still a human narrative, and I think that's why it works. And I think that's why people are like not burning down theaters at the end of the movie, because they don't realize that this is still a narrative too. It's just definitely it is very much a 2-act or whatever. Like, the Odyssey doesn't. It basically has him. It's weird. It's like prologue,
Well,
then it's Act 1, Act 2.
Epic poetry doesn't really have the Shakespearean structure. That was just we're drunk around a fire, and the longer and sexier the story is, the better.
Yeah.
Well, you guys kind of bring up an interesting point. That means that Avengers 4, do we think it'll be Iron Man's story?
No, it's going to be
Do we think it'll be Captain America's
it's going to be
story?
Thanos' origin into Act 3 of Avengers. So
I don't know.
I don't know that it will
There's
be.
there's an
the
X
thing.
factor here. It's Captain Marvel.
Right.
Oh, right.
Which is the one last piece of homework you have to do. If you haven't seen Ant-Man and the Wasp, you don't have to. You can just watch the ending, the
Quantum
post-credit
realm.
scene. They introduce a quantum realm mechanic. But that's really it. Like I think you have to see Captain Marvel.
You do. You're right.
Yeah, I think
time
because they're
factor.
setting that up as she's going to probably be the X factor in this whole thing.
I would wager that it's probably
they don't have the rights to that.
2 is probably going to be is probably going to resemble something more like a traditional Avengers, because I think they'll
That's what I think.
pretty firmly rely on the fact that they lost because they weren't together.
Oh.
They were spread out.
That's the comic book story, right?
right.
Isn't that the comic book story? That's the.
Are we
they
talking
realize,
Infinity Gauntlet or?
Yeah, like they learn, because I read that before. I've read that that's like they didn't have teamwork, so that's why they needed to have teamwork.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's going to be like, okay, seriously, who's left? We all need to be together, and we need to figure out how to do this.
Yeah.
Because like, in some ways, like Tony Stark is left there and is by far the most cynical. Like he almost feels like there's no way they're going to win for the entirety of the movie. So it's like everyone's going to be on
visions,
board,
right. So he's seen this coming for a while, and
Yeah.
to that degree, like it's the more I think about it, the more I am amazed that it was a mechanical payoff for a lot of arduously set up storylines over the course of a decade.
Which no other film has ever done. The only thing that's ever got away with this is comic books, which
Star
now have been
Wars,
translated.
kinda.
Which one?
Star Wars. They had the original trilogy, then they came back with the prequels. It is
Yeah, but not nearly executed as well.
no,
Yeah.
absolutely not.
I mean, Tony Stark's arc has taken place over 15 movies,
Yeah.
which is like
Harry Potter is kind of close in terms of
Yeah.
a grand
Yeah.
cinematic effort.
but that was based on existing media, whereas
I mean, this is too.
Yeah, this is big comic books.
Yeah,
yeah,
this isn't brand new stuff.
that's a good point. Yeah, it is a reinterpretation.
I mean, I would actually say Harry Potter's more original than the Marvels, because Marvel's had 50 plus years or whatever to
That's a good
figure
point.
this out,
Yeah,
and
that's
they've
true.
even redone Thanos' storyline in comic book form a few times. So it's like they've had ways to sort of like kind of beta test it and be like, oh, let's see what works best. That's sort of I think what works well with the movies. So they can just pull the best parts of the comics and forget all the garbage.
You know what it reminds me of? Two Towers. I remember everybody walking out of that theater being like, what am I supposed to think now?
Oh, yeah.
Because it ended at a really low point for all of the characters and all the storylines. And unlike this, which had a clear communicated vision, not a whole lot of people knew there was a third Lord of the Rings book already. So I remember a lot of people being wildly confused
Yeah.
and disturbed.
Same
at
with
how,
Fellowship. People were like, what the fuck?
Fellowship was super sad.
Yeah, what the hell? I was like, I guess they needed to put a thing in there that says Bilbo will return or Frodo,
James
whatever.
Bond.
You'll be back. Shut up. Real quick, let me read this. I want to remind you guys that this episode of Funhaus is brought to you by Lisa Mattress. A quality night's sleep helps you recover from distractions faster. Imagine if Thanos had a good night's rest. He could have got through this movie a lot quicker. It would only been 90 minutes. It helps prevent burnout. You make better decisions, improve your memory, and overall make fewer mistakes. Thanos. It's not marketing, it's science. To design a better mattress, Lisa leveraged 30 plus years of experience and hundreds of hours of testing, science, to develop the perfect mattress for all body shapes and sleeping styles. Lisa's mission is to provide a better night's sleep for everybody, every body. through their 110 program. So they do donate one mattress for every 10 that they sell. So that's more than 26,000 mattresses and counting. If you snap your fingers, half those people could be asleep right now. Lisa strives to leave the world better than they found it, unlike Thanos, but that doesn't stop the mattress donations. Together with the Arbor Day Foundation, Lisa plants one tree for every mattress they sell and are committed to planting 1 million trees by 2025. I believe we'll be in phase 20 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe by then. It'll be Son of Tony Stark.
Miles Morales.
We can't wait. That's
Riri.
this year, actually.
Riri Williams.
Yeah, maybe we'll get some Riri. So don't miss these summer savings. Get $160 off a Lisa mattress by going to lisa.com/filmhouse. That's LEESA.com/FILMHAUS. Or just check the description down below. Save some money. Sleep well. It's all good stuff. So thank you, Lisa, for sponsoring this podcast.
Something just occurred to me watching this rundown. Caecilius' motivations are awfully similar to Thanos's.
Are they?
He talks about heat death of the universe. He's basically like,
Well, he just wants to live forever.
He wanted to become one with Dormammu so that he could live forever.
he wanted the human race to
He
live
did,
forever.
he did want the human race.
He was basically talking about how, he was basically talking about the end of the universe, which is a weird science concept called heat death. But he wanted to prevent that by a different sort of energy source aside from heat and light, which was dark portal stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like maybe that point wasn't made as well in that movie, but I feel like Doctor Strange was still really similar in terms of like hero and villain motivations and how it's about sacrifice and what you're willing to trade for what you want.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it hit those notes too, and I really appreciated it for that.
Yeah.
It ended in the very Marvel way, which is big CG fight and everything's back to normal, except now the Staff Man is evil. So
I liked that Doctor Strange ended with him using his power explicitly to defeat him.
Mm-hmm.
well, he told what was it? He told the guy like you lack imagination.
Yeah.
And then he found a way to create a good situation without trading anything away.
Yep. That's what's so cool about Doctor Strange. He doesn't kill people.
Like because he's a doctor.
Except for
right.
that guy who cracked his neck.
Killed the one guy and then
he-
said,
And then he goes, no more.
never do it again.
Yeah. That's like when Kramer goes like, he's taking the vow of silence and he goes, starting now.
Oh, yeah.
And then stubs his toe and he goes, dang it.
Starting
So,
now.
I
He
wanted.
took Scott Adkins out of the MCU, and I hate him for that.
Yeah, that's what they did. I did want to leave you guys with a lingering question, because this is sort of the thing that bugs me. On one hand, I want to praise Infinity War for introducing stakes and actually going through with them, meaning they wiped out half the universe and they killed off some major characters. But it was immediately ruined when they announced a new Spider-Man, a new Guardians. Even though Guardians may be a prequel, that's what I've heard. But like we know that these are, it's fun to at least pretend that these characters won't come back. But is that sort of ruined when we're in this sort of place where we have to introduce a roadmap now for movies like this? Does that ruin your experience at all?
What would be better? And let me throw this out there. What would be better? Marvel's like, yeah, we're shooting this stuff. Or Marvel's like, I don't know. Is Spider-Man ever going to come back? And then on Twitter, there's like, oh, here's a picture of him in the suit. They're filming right now.
Yeah.
And Marvel's still like, I don't know.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I think
I feel like they're respecting the intelligence of the audience and also the internet
Yeah.
by just admitting, yeah, we're shooting more movies.
Well, I think it's like a slippery. It's like, should they not market the movie so it's surprised that Thanos is in it? Like, like at a certain point, you gotta make the business work.
To that point, though, would Thor Ragnarok have been better had you not known the Hulk was in the movie?
No, because that's a payoff. I feel like that surprise is a payoff for people who are really into like Planet Hulk and know those comics and those references.
For me, it would have been better.
Yeah.
I would have been excited about that.
It's a similar story with Terminator 2. The original marketing ruined the fact that Arnold was a good guy.
Or even the newest Terminator, where they're like, John Connor is a Terminator.
Well, that's just modern trailers just being utter shit.
I
But
guess you're right, yeah.
I mean, Terminator 2, we talked about this before.
yeah,
but
the reveal is masterful in that movie.
exactly. It's paced in a way that they're both trying to kill John Connor, and then it builds up to that moment. He goes, "Get down," and then you're like, "Oh shit, he's a
Or
good guy."
Sarah Connor, yeah.
Sarah
that?
Connor.
They were going for her in the
No,
psych ward.
it's
Terminator
they're-
2, he's trying to kill John.
Yeah,
But the introduction is him busting in to get Sarah.
No,
in the,
it's in the mall.
it's in the mall.
Oh yeah, that's right.
That's the thing. It's the
The
build.
Galleria.
You're right.
Yeah.
My bad. Sorry. It's just I was confusing it. The scene where she sees him in the psych ward is very similar to the same shot in Terminator 1. My bad.
Yeah.
I still go back to Rogue One, where I didn't watch any trailers for Rogue One, or I think I watched one maybe. Not knowing anything about the movie, went and saw the movie. Had no idea there was going to be a space battle. So when the space battle came at the end of that film, I was like, holy! I was so excited. I was, over the moon. That's probably the most excited I've been in a while in a movie.
Right.
So that really helped that even though they did put it in trailers, I didn't watch them. So that was my good.
To me, it's the difference between having a delicious cake with all of the icing you could ever dream and a delicious cake with all of the icing you could ever dream that has, like, your name written on it. It's a small little
they're
addition.
both good.
It's not going to change the flavor of the cake, but I'm like, hey, that's my name in a cake.
Yeah, they're both really good.
I bring that up just because the Infinity War trailer, actually, it was recut in a way, and they actually had added bits of it to throw the audience off, such as showing the Hulk fighting during Wakanda.
Oh.
I didn't
know that.
When Thanos punches Captain America, Steve Rogers, he's holding his fist. They actually removed Infinity Stones from the gauntlet because they didn't want to spoil the part of the fact. So it actually confused a lot of people of what was happening. And there's certain moments where they didn't put on Tony Stark's suit, so it was unclear whether he won or lost a battle. There was just a lot of cool little things that they did because I think they're smart enough to know that, like,
They're trying.
yeah, they're trying to preserve some bit. Because I just remember leaving during the first time we saw Infinity War, I was actually legitimately surprised and like, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know who's going to die. And that was a good feeling. It felt nice.
Did they come out and say they did those things on purpose?
Or was it just like pre-production stuff?
It could have been a happy accident.
Because
Yeah.
I bet the way they work is they have, like, they know shots. They say, start working on these shots. Because, like, in Thor Ragnarok, in the early trailers for it, Thor's hammer is shattered in New York City. But in the movie, they're in this, like, grassy, weird, like, scape in,
Or in
like,
heaven
Norway
or
or whatever
whatever,
it is. And so, but they explained afterwards that it's because they didn't know if they were going to get Doctor Strange. And so they had to basically revamp it after the fact to include Doctor Strange in it, and then it did make sense for them to be in New York because that's where Doctor Strange was. So then they just they swapped the green screen basically.
Yeah.
Wow.
Put them on the Bliss wallpaper.
Yeah, but that was a thing where it's like, well, in the script it was this, so
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's we're also in an interesting time now too, where I believe as of now, I'm not sure if it's official, but the Fox merger between Disney is official. So now
I think it's done.
so much like Thanos, Disney has collected another Infinity Stone.
yeah, I know.
I was gonna say we're gonna get. Well, that means we're gonna get X-Men.
Yeah.
Everybody, just
And,
be prepared. X-Men are coming.
But that's so the Russo brothers have worked miracles. But the X-Men universe tonally is way different than MCU.
I don't
At
think
least
so.
I feel
now.
like it.
I don't think it's gonna matter.
I think they'll wait.
Oh, really?
I feel like they'll let it play out, and then they'll figure out a place to cross paths.
Don't you? Are you excited? That schnick, schnick. Then he goes. Na-na-na-na-na.
Yeah.
He starts
And he's
stabbing
gonna be in
Thanos.
the yellow suit.
So I'm curious about that because like Captain Marvel, the way that these characters, the Marvel movies have done a great job of keeping characters consistent in terms of personality, but also like power scope. Movies like this tend to broaden to absurd levels. So like Star Wars is a good example. In A New Hope, the Force didn't do jack shit.
Oh, yeah.
By Episode 8, there's a woman flying through space, and Luke Skywalker's a ghost man across the galaxy. Like things tend to blow up, and there has been escalation. Yeah, like Thor gets a better hammer, he becomes a lightning god. That stuff makes sense, but I wonder how can X-Men, if they enter the Avengers universe, Wolverine is a dude with claws and sharp bones, and that's it. He's kind of like Spider-Man tier.
Yeah, like Spider-Man.
But Spider-Man, they gave him a super suit, so I guess they could just do that to Wolverine, whatever. But like Magneto and Professor X are kind of on that level with Doctor Strange, where they can actually do stuff against intergalactic villains.
Well, I mean, generally in the past, the X-Men are so effective when they work as a team.
They work together.
So they'll have Colossus throw Wolverine, or Storm will carry him in a tornado or whatever. And I feel like if they were smart, that's how you do it.
Yeah,
I mean,
I-
Wolverine basically has the same powers to a lesser extent as Captain America, but Captain America still loses a fight to Iron Man when he doesn't have Bucky.
Good point.
You
Good
know,
point.
like
Yeah.
But man, now you're introducing 10 characters into an already
Well,
stacked
I'm not saying
movie.
all of them. I'm just saying like there may be a couple here.
well, they're
and
also
there.
going to be cycling some of these characters out.
Yeah, you're right.
I mean, we already know, again, back to the knowing too much about movie production and stuff, Chris Evans is like, all right, I'm good.
Yep.
You know, and
Or is he? Yeah.
Chris Hemsworth is like, I'm good for one more.
And Robert Downey Jr. is getting expensive.
Yeah.
They're probably not going to pay that check for too much longer.
Nah.
I mean,
You don't
he,
think?
he makes money based off the franchise making money, so I'm pretty sure they're probably not too worried about it.
Okay.
Yeah, and he barely has to show up anymore, so it's like it's mostly CGI and a little bit of voice acting.
I was actually impressed with how much Infinity War they transformed him back into his tracksuit.
Oh yeah,
I was like, you could have just kept him in the armor and
Yeah.
just been like whatever. But there's like, no, put me on a set, do some tracksuit. I want to talk to Benedict Cumberbatch.
yeah, I want to do some good acting. Actually, to counter your point a little bit, Lawrence, one thing that does excite me about Marvel getting a hold of a new ensemble of characters, they did this a bit in the first Avengers, and this is a big reason why I found that movie to be really exciting. Is someone sat down and said, wouldn't it be cool if, years ago, and they did this with Marvel Comics, and James talked a little bit about it with like Colossus doing the fastball special, where he picks up Wolverine and throws him, and you're like, fuck yeah, cool, and they do stuff like that. In the original Avengers, there's a part where, Iron Man shoots his like beams at the shield and it reflects.
Yeah.
And it's like, they even like build up to that. They do that a lot in Infinity War where someone sat down and they're like, oh, what are all the cool things?
Yep. Tag team
Doctor
moves.
Strange and
Magic
Spider-Man. Yeah, the whole magic kick. And then even when Star-Lord's running, it's Doctor Strange putting up little pads for him.
And he jumps off of him.
And I'm just like, this is so fucking cool, like, to see that. Now, on the flip side, we have Justice League, which is, I'm only using it as a counterexample. You had all these characters.
Flash pushed the sword
And
toward
what-
Wonder Woman.
That was the one time they worked together, and the movie was not so bad then.
And then there was a giant mecho tank that was crawling up a well. I don't know.
I feel like the creativity there was mostly they can fly and they can throw stuff. And that's about as far as they got.
Yeah.
And I'm actually excited to see what the Marvel studio can do, the movie studio can do with an X-Men franchise and intermingling it with eventually Fantastic Four and Avengers. Like, I think they're actually going to do a good job. So that excites me as a fan and as someone who wants to feel young forever.
I'm excited. I think you've seen a lot of this in the TV or Netflix stuff that Marvel's been doing. What I hope is that when the roster gets that big, that we don't get an Infinity War won't happen that often. Typically, what I'm expecting is Infinity Wars all over the place where there's crossovers between heroes in the similar tier.
Like Civil Wars.
Yes.
Yeah.
So they'll be dealing with problems like Daredevil's like, I work in this one borough in New York. And then all the New York heroes get together to solve one problem in New York. And that's kind of an event. This is how comics have worked for a long time.
Didn't they try that with Defenders?
Yes.
I didn't see it. I just heard it was awful.
Yeah, me
so.
neither.
How do you fuck that up?
Well, I mean, it tried to follow the same template, right? Establish all these
Yeah.
characters, have them cross over to solve a larger problem.
But I don't know what the bigger problem was.
Yeah,
I read someone.
Rent.
The rent is crazy. We got to beat up the landlord. But any final thoughts you guys have? Because we're about ready to close out this MCU in review.
We didn't get to rank our movies.
We can go around and do that.
I just
real
want to
quick.
say, can we just say the number one movie that we think is the best?
That's fair.
I'll just say mine.
Go ahead.
Civil War. That's what I think.
That's a good pick.
That's what I think.
That's a
Great
solid pick.
Great pick.
James.
Mine is Ragnarok still.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a great pick,
Good
Lawrence.
movie.
Thank you.
I think it's probably Civil War Homecoming, but there are personal reasons. Like that's not by the math of it. I just really like Spider-Man, and I think Homecoming is the best treatment of that character so far.
Great picks.
But Civil War, just as a film, as action, as like stories that mean something, very, very good.
Wildcard Adam, he's going to say Thor 2.
Say Guardians. Nobody said Guardians yet.
Yeah,
No.
Guardians Volume 1, I remember like
Guardians is great.
there was a hole in my heart where Star Wars used to be, and when I saw Guardians, I walked out being like, I feel complete again.
Oh, boy, yeah.
It's real good.
I'm sadly going to probably be a front runner and just say Infinity War.
Oh,
but
nice.
It's so hard to say this is the best film because it is standing on the backs of so much work and effort that has been put into a franchise. So it's hard to say it's good as a stand. I don't know. I'll never know if it's good as a
I think
standalone
we're going
movie.
to find out.
We are.
In 20 years, we're going to find out.
We're
People
gonna
are
have
be like,
one
this
test
is fucking awesome.
I hope so.
I just, me personally, since I love the hero's journey, man, do I hope Avengers 4 is better than Infinity War. I know it's going to be hard to do, but I really hope that I get the payoff and the climax.
Return
that I
of the
want.
King of Marvel movies.
That's and you know me, James. There's nothing I like better than a climax that fits the story. I always use the Incredible Hulk as an example. The Hulk I was like, nobody can fight the Hulk because he's so strong. And then he fought Abomination. And I was like, that's exactly what I wanted. Another dude who's as strong as the Hulk. So hopefully we'll get that in Avengers 4.
And you had, let's see, we've had Hulkbuster beat up Hulk.
Yeah.
We've had
Thanos beat up
Thor
Hulk.
beat up Hulk. And then we had Thanos utterly kick the shit out of Hulk. So
I just realized, so
He's coming back this movie.
Get
ready.
I was kind of putting my chips down on Avengers 4, a substantial part of that being Thanos' origin, or at least Thanos' flashback. Captain Marvel is also in the 90s. So they can tie that story in with whatever the allusions were to Thanos' backstory. And then through that, I really hope it doesn't go this way, but they find something that they can reason with him and convince him to like give it up or use the gauntlet to turn it all back. Like a Sandman scenario where it's like, don't you remember that you have a little girl? And he's like, you're right, I won't be evil anymore. I really hope it doesn't go there.
I don't know. We got Quantum Realm to deal with. We got the Skrulls. That's something. The Kree, which are involved.
That's Captain Marvel's movie, though, right?
Yeah. Skrulls and Kree. For those who know, Skrulls are like a shape-shifting
They're
race.
all Fantastic Four combined into one.
Well, that's
right?
Super Skrull.
That's Super Skrull,
sorry.
yeah. The
My
Skrull
bad.
are a race that can essentially, like, Lawrence, you could be a Skrull right now and not even know it. You could be a sleeper agent.
Really?
Hail Hydra.
Which a lot of people are saying, like, perhaps Hawkeye or other characters have been Skrulls the entire time.
What?
That could be. See? Look,
That's
it's already
awesome.
It's already blowing your mind.
That's so cool.
Is that a Hydra thing?
No. It's just same.
It's just
same idea.
It's always been a
One
Captain
space
Marvel
Hydra.
thing.
I
But
see.
yeah, the Kree with the character Ronan, who is played by Lee Pace in the Guardians films, he's in it. Nick Fury's in it. All that fun stuff. So we got a lot to look forward to. It's feels good to like stuff, you know.
Possibly even Thanos' henchman, the big dude.
Oh, yeah.
Did you guys see that? Did you read the
Corvus
article?
Glaive or whatever?
Wait, what? They're all dead.
Did you read the article? No, I know.
but in the past.
He may have fought Captain Marvel because he had Captain Marvel's, possibly a Captain Marvel piece of her costume on his belt.
Oh.
I didn't notice that.
I'll send you the article.
Please
Yeah,
do.
Isn't Captain Marvel part of like a Space Force or something? Am I off about that?
I think-
like with like Nova and
I
some
know
other
she's in
characters?
space, but I don't
She's
know.
not part of the Nova Force.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
We could
But
perhaps do a whole other episode on Captain Marvel. I've been doing a lot of research on her character.
You mean jerking off to porn of her?
There's some dark stuff in there. She was one of the first characters in comic book history that they had. There was some rape involved.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that got dark.
Well, like in the 60s? Like how
All
far?
right, well,
ago?
let's end it there.
60s, 70s.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Marvel.
We're coming off Silver
Avengers
Age
got
and-
dark, man.
Well,
There's some fucked up stuff.
It's
that
fun
they-
to track it, you know? DC came out, they were all like Happy Smile America, like radio drama reinvented for the 50s, basically. People had that for a decade, and they're like, we want something different and dark. And then you get
The problem is they still try to do it in a light, funny way
Yes.
where they're like, she had birth against her will, right, guys? What a villain. Everyone's like, that's not cool. And they went, oh, shit, you're right. We're sorry. And they basically undid it. Anyway, we can talk about that on another podcast. But for now, thank you guys for listening, watching, all that fun stuff. Actually, great meeting a lot of you guys at RTX. All 6 of you who said you enjoy listening to the show. I remember your names. You were very kind.
if you don't come up next year, there's going to be hell to pay.
Yeah, you best be there. So once again, guys, thanks for being on the show, and everyone to watching, listening. And we'll see you next week. Until then, what does Iron Man always say? What's his catchphrase?
Love you.
Yeah. I'm made of metal.
Bye, guys.
Taken too fast or too long. Or
It did take way too long. That segment I just did.
Couch Crew.
Couch Crew? Couch Crew remembers.
No, I
Jason
don't
Biggs.
consent to this segment.
Well, it's
Too
fine.
late.
Well, here, I'll do the legal
Dead.
thing.
What are you going to do?
If Jason Biggs is not dead, this is null and void. There.